Welcome to Cooking for Yummies on the Maple Knoll Radio Network. Coming to you from the Cromer-Mashburn family studio at WMKV. On this program, we explore the world of food, from the grocery store to the specialty store, and from the restaurant to your own kitchen. In doing so, we learn more about us as well.
Thanks for joining us. Our show is Cooking for Yummies, and one of our regular guests we have here several times a year is Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. You can find out all kinds of great recipes at Kroger.com. Just key in the word recipes, and you can find all kinds of good things. And Chef Aaron, thank you again for taking time with us here on a very busy schedule to talk on Cooking for Yummies.
Thanks for having me, George. How you doing?
We're doing well. A couple of quick questions as we're kind of heading into the springtime here and looking forward to summer, which in Cincinnati can be kind of balmy and hot. I'm trying to think of some really nice kind of cool meals that people can have. And we are not going to get into specific recipes today, but I will tell you, I'll name some of the ones that are on the Kroger website, which is really neat. And what I love is the fact that on the website, Chef Aaron, is that there are things by different proteins, but also you can look up salads. And I think there are more than 800 different salad recipes on there. So literally you could eat different types of salads like creamy Cobb salad or fresh fruit salad, strawberry chicken salad, summer chicken and bacon salad, kale salad. You can eat a different salad every day if you wanted to, and you wouldn't repeat for almost 3 years. That's pretty amazing.
That's pretty impressive. The organization of the website in general is just very, very helpful. And the fact that people can go look for something and then, of course, go pick it up at the same location that they're looking it up on their website is extremely helpful. And then if you use the app to follow that up, it can even tell you where it's at in the store.
I've seen that where it says shop ingredients, so you can even find those, what aisle to find things. And obviously when we're talking about salad, we're probably sending a lot of people to the produce and then to the different protein areas for chicken. But it really is kind of nice to be able to just kind of navigate or plan your trip, so to speak. It's like getting a triptych the way AAA used to.
Well, even including things like, maybe you're looking for a specific cheese to go in there or dressing to go with it or seasoning even to put on your proteins, or, they have those sprinkles that you can use some toppings and put on there that it might be in a specific section of produce. But there's a lot of different options for salads. And even going into spring, there's going to be more vegetable and fruit options that will be presented at meals instead of the heavier meals with potatoes or pastas or that kind of thing. You'll be branching into the lighter options.
Well, let's talk about some of those options. And again, just to give people kind of an idea of maybe some things that they have never tried before here on Cooking for Yummies, as we're talking with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. And we appreciate Kroger's support of WMKV. But Chef Aaron was a guest long before Kroger even got involved with the radio station here. We're thrilled to have Chef Aaron on, though, with us. What are some of your favorite items to include in salads, maybe, as we're looking kind of at making some warmer weather meals that might help us cool off a little bit?
There's two different things that really pop into my mind right away. So what I'm looking for is what's in season. So things like maybe like a spring pea that pop into your mind. But as you branch into summer, I love items that are fresh, maybe like a vine-ripened tomato, or maybe, the zucchini. And I'm a big fan of things like throwing the zucchini on the grill, so like cutting it in half and seasoning it and grilling it, but then cooling it off and making a salad afterwards. So you still get those grill flavors, but it's something light and refreshing. And to keep it light and refreshing, what I like to use is fresh herbs, like paring basil and throwing it into a salad and keeping citrus around, so lemon and oranges and limes. Those kind of things are going to please your appetite, but still keep it light and refreshing for a nice hot day, or maybe you're eating out on the patio.
And I think when we were talking on the Super Bowl show, I mentioned guacamole, and I will tell you, there's just something about that little extra lime in guacamole that I like a little bit more lime than probably my wife does. But boy, it just adds something to that particular mix. And the same thing, I would imagine, on just about any kind of salad. If you like that taste, it's really something something that adds a little extra dash that you might not get every day.
Have you ever tried using the lime chips to add your extra kick of lime?
Yes. And I found that different brands, and again, I've tried several different brands, some of them are a little overwhelming. It's almost like they're trying to make it too much. And then there are some that are fairly mild. So I love lime, but every once in a while I'll try a different brand, and sometimes they're just, whoa, that's a lot of lime.
There's even a guacamole flavored chip now.
Really?
That has a little bit of lime to it, yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it's like having the guac already built in almost. So
the chip itself is green.
Although I have to say there's something about that great texture as well. It's great to have the flavor, but also that great texture. I'm a texture eater. I like different types of textures. I didn't want to sidetrack you on that, but when you brought up citrus, that's one of my favorite things that has a lot of citrus in it. But I've even had some wonderful salads. A lot of times I'm not a big person to mix fruit and leafy greens, but I have had a couple where they've used some apples mixed in with a salad, and oh my goodness, it was something I never would have tried on my own, but I was eating at a friend's house, and they had apples. I'm trying to remember exactly what dressing they were using with it, but it was just tremendous. And while apples are not citrus necessarily, it was one of those things I never would have tried before.
Yeah, you get those things like apples and blue cheese and bacon and maybe some dried cranberries in there. They could have gone a couple different directions with the dressing, but probably like a raspberry vinaigrette or something like that. That would keep it a little bit lighter and fruitier, but the blue cheese and bacon would cut through with hitting all the parts of the taste buds as well.
If you're just joining us here on Cooking for Yummies, we're visiting with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company, and they have a tremendous vault, if you will, of recipes. All kinds of things from trending recipes to fresh pick recipes, 30 minutes or less recipes. They have them broken down by pasta, beef, seafood, vegetarian, pork, chicken, and poultry. It's a great way to look for different recipes, and many of you probably already are aware of this, but if you've never checked it out, it's pretty cool. And you can even shop by the ingredients at Kroger, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. So it's kind of a one-stop location. Then you just can go hit the store and find what you're looking for. We are talking about salads and just kind of in general some good spring and maybe early summer recipes here. And one of the things that I think a lot of people really look forward to during the springtime and the summer is the fact that we have so many more seasonal availability of some of the goodies out there in the produce section. Is that generally run true, that we tend to have maybe a little bit more selection during the spring and summer?
That's going to be countrywide necessarily. They try to source as much locally as they can, and that's for a number of reasons. It's going to last longer. It's going to be fresher. It's going to taste better. But again, you want to support your local economy. So yeah, that's definitely one of the things that they try to do is source locally as much as they can.
I love the fact that you're talking about supporting the local economy, local growers, local farmers to be able to get a lot of this here. And boy, what a great point, the fact that this stuff is going to be even fresher when it gets there. And I know Kroger's big campaigns have been recently on, we have our fresh police out there checking everything in the produce section. It really is nice, though, to hear, though, that in addition to that, you're also supporting the local commerce and the local farmers, which is great. Are there challenges?
I like that you put it like that with the fresh police out there. It's an excellent way to analyze it, because they really are kind of looking for the bad guys,
Even if you're buying like bag greens or something like that, if you want a salad mix or something, you can find that. But the other thing is to go in there kind of like you do, Chef Aaron, like when you're walking through the store and you see maybe some arugula there, you see some iceberg lettuce, you see all different kinds of things and go, oh, you know what, I want to try this. It's almost like having this blank palette. And I mean more like a painting palette, but I guess it could be the palette in our mouth too. But you have this wonderful blank palette and you decide what you're going to paint on it when you're making, whether it's a salad or any kind of a meal.
You're not wrong as far as if you're walking through and you want to pick up a kit. My wife and I have done it before where you go get the kit to make it easy, but maybe you throw a piece of chicken on the grill or a steak on the grill to complement it, and it really puts together a whole meal. But those kits aren't just limited to salads. I mean, there's stir-fry kits over there to where you can go get some stir-fry mix. And, again, I have countless items to help me grill, but I have a silicone mat that I like to put the vegetables on, and I can saute on the grill right next to the meat when I'm doing that, and I can do it all at the same time, and it still picks up some of that smoke and some of that grill flavor and gets me outside more than anything. And that's the best part about having good weather is you can go outside and do those things.
We're here on Cooking for Yummies, visiting with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company. We're going to take a quick break in the show, but we're talking about some great spring and summer and warmer weather type meals that you might want to consider making at home. And you can find more of those great Kroger recipes, all kinds of recipes, more than you can shake a beef stick at. That's at Kroger.com. And we'll be back with more with Chef Aaron Neiman in just a moment here on Cooking for Yummies. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're on Cooking for Yummies here today, visiting with Chef Aaron Neiman. We're talking about some great spring, summer, warm weather recipes and just some things that you might want to consider. Now, I do have to ask, Chef Aaron, I have talked to so many people on this show, and you were talking about the warmer weather and grilling. Have you ever weathered the snow or cold or ice to go out and grill during the cold weather months?
I have. The funny thing is I've gone out in the cold, and the job gets done. But the one that really gets to you is when you go out in the rain several times. I mean, I put a rain jacket on, and I'll move a floor mat over by the door so I can walk back in and take my shoes off. But, you know, when you want something grilled, you want something grilled. If you got to go outside in the rain or the snow, then you got to do it.
Exactly. And you can only do so much on like a Foreman or something like that. But when you want that flame grilled taste, you kind of got to do it outside to be safe. And I know people who are so addicted to grilling, and that's a good addiction, I think, for the most part. But they're so addicted that they will be out there in a couple of inches of snow grilling outside, either on the back deck or on the patio. It's just tremendous. So grilling chicken is one of those great things that can be added. I mentioned a few of the salads earlier in the show. There's like a strawberry chicken salad if you want a little bit of the sweet and the savory mixed together. Summer chicken and bacon salad, which is really, you talk about savory. You had chicken and bacon there. But grilled chicken is something else. Are there any other grilled proteins that might work well with a salad other than chicken? It seems like that's the most popular.
To be quite honest, I don't think there's a bad one out there. You can grill everything. You can grill shrimp, salmon. I mean, if you want to put together a steak salad, you can do pork chops if you really wanted to. And again, with that kind of sweetness, typically a lot of the sweetness will cater to something like a pork. Chicken's kind of a blank palette. What my wife and I like to do at home is we'll buy our chicken or pork a couple days ahead of time, and we'll get a Ziploc bag and make some marinades, and we'll have it marinating. And not only does that impart flavor, but for things like chicken and pork that would be a little bit drier on the grill, it's going to help them stay moist after cooking. It's going to give you a little bit more leeway to where maybe you're not familiar with it. You have some time to make some mistakes and still pull it off the grill and be okay with what you're eating.
In the first half of the show, you mentioned a few wonderful spices that you can utilize within that. What are some of your favorite ways to marinate some of these proteins?
We do like to go a little bit all over the board, but going back to your love for guacamole, we do love a cilantro lime mixture. And what we try to do is keep it 5 or 6 ingredients or less. And like I said, it's a lot of stuff that's going to be around the house. So we do impart some Asian flavors sometimes. We'll use some dried ginger and some fresh garlic, and we'll put some soy sauce in there with a little bit of vinegar, and we'll let that marinate overnight. But yeah, like I said, we're kind of all over the board with what we like to put on there. It kind of depends on the weather, what we have. You know, we utilize what's around the house.
At the Neiman household, now when you lock onto something, you work out one of those 5 or 6 ingredient or less combinations. Do you jot them down sometimes and say, man, we got to come back to this one?
In more of a digital age, we screenshot it, and we'll save it in a folder on our phone. It makes it easy because you know where it's at. You know, you don't have to store it away in a recipe folder, even though those are a little bit more nostalgic, say when your kids grow up and they want to find what they've been eating for their childhood. It makes it nice because if, say, she's in another room and I'm like, hey, do you have that recipe? She can just send it to me right away. So it is helpful on that standpoint. But we can also find recipes that somebody else has come up with and screenshot it and save it in the same folder. So it is nice to play off of other people's recipes because that's a never-ending process to where we're always creating and finding things that we haven't had that maybe somebody else has been eating for the last 10 years.
And what I love when we're talking here on Cooking for Yummies, as we are today with Chef Aaron Neiman from the Kroger Company, their recipes galore at Kroger.com. And we're talking about these wonderful recipes and variations off of recipes and being able to experiment a little bit. Sometimes you start with a baseline and you say, what would fit with this? It's almost like an interior decorator saying, I know what color splash needs to go over there. As you two develop your palettes at your household, certain things that you say, okay, now we're going to add a little dash of this or a little bit of that. Is it possible sometimes to overdo marinade or seasoning?
Oh, 100%. I mean, a lot of things you can recover from. But typically things like salt or sugar, you want to hold back a little bit until and especially salt, because you can always add a little bit at the end. We try to refrain from adding any if we can, unless, say we're seasoning the raw meat itself. But there's a lot of things you can add to impart flavor. Again, going back to the citrus or maybe the herbs, to where you're not going to overdo it necessarily with a fresh herb, but there are some dried herbs or, say, a chili pepper that would definitely overdo it, and there's no turning back. You want to make sure that you're marinating about 24 hours ahead of time. If you go any longer than that, sometimes your meat can start to cook within the bag if there's a good amount of salt or citrus in there. So you do need to be aware of that and just maybe refrain a little bit and hold back. But there's not a ton besides those if you're going to marinate, besides the salt content and maybe some of the dry herbs that can be a little bit overbearing.
I wanted to ask you about peppers. Is this a great time for people who like to utilize peppers, whether it's in a salad or in a protein dish or a vegetarian dish? How hot are peppers now? Pun intended, I guess.
I don't think peppers really had a downtime necessarily. One of the neat things that we like to get in the spring and the summer is those little sweet peppers that I think a lot of people like to pick up. They might stuff them with cream cheese, or they'll put something in them and put them on the grill. But one of the things that I see a lot of is people stuffing jalapenos when they're in season. They'll buy 20 or 30 of them, and they'll buy those jalapeno racks that you can put on the grill, and they'll just stuff them and let them cook up, and everybody will snack on them. I don't know if I've ever seen maybe in the wintertime, but a downtime for peppers that there's just more varieties that are available. When we branch into the hatch chili season, there's Anaheim's poblanos. We have so many different options that's definitely one of the things that we have in the fridge at all times is at least a bell pepper and a jalapeno pepper. Add a little kick and then a little color.
And you mentioned hatch chili season. Tell us what hatch chili is.
A hatch chili is a cross of an Anaheim chili with almost like a serrano pepper. So you're going to have hot ones, and then you're going to have mild ones, and you don't know until you dive in. But there is going to be a little bit of heat with them. I'm a big fan of stuffing them. So they're about the size of maybe, we'll say a banana, like a small banana. So they're really good for things like you get some Italian sausage and some rice and maybe some cheddar cheese, and you throw them in there and throw them on the grill. Maybe you can wrap them in bacon, but I couldn't tell you the endless options of ways I've stuffed these things. Stuff them with chicken and cheese and wrap them with bacon and put them on the grill. They're just really good, and when the season hits, they're a really good price, but they're fresh and they're from the States, so I'm a big fan of them.
Well, I will tell you, you've got my mouth watering just thinking about all of this food. Chef Aaron Neiman, our special guest today on Cooking for Yummies. He's with us several times a year as we're talking about just some fun recipe ideas, some ingredients really more than specific recipes to give you ideas maybe on something to spice up or freshen up what you're already eating at home. And Chef Aaron, anything in the final moment here that you might like to challenge people before the next time you and I visit? Are there any ingredients or anything that you might want to challenge somebody for the spring and summer to maybe try that might be a little bit off the beaten path?
One of the things I might suggest is, more than anything, just open your mind. So there's a lot of products when you walk into produce that maybe you haven't seen it before, or maybe you've seen it on TV and you're not sure how to use it. But one of the great things about both using the internet and using the Kroger website for recipes is there's a lot of ways to teach you how to use new things. So if you're kind of stuck in a rut, maybe you have a really good recipe, but you're tired of eating it, maybe add one of these new ingredients to it, or try some of these new items that you see. I would invite people to step out of their box, because we've been in a pandemic for a really long time, and as we're kind of branching out of that and moving on with our lives, so to speak, maybe we can try some new things and expand our palate, or maybe even there's something that you didn't like before, and you can go back and try it a different way. I'm a big fan of things like making a fresh pickle, and it doesn't take very long, but you can do it with a ton of different vegetables. It's not just cucumbers. I invite people to step out of their box more than anything.
That is fantastic. Chef Aaron Neiman, thank you again for taking some time here with us. We look forward to our next visit. And in the meantime, we hope everybody has some wonderful opportunities to try some of the different recipes. And we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, George. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much to Chef Aaron Neiman. Thank you to the Kroger Company for their support of Cooking for Yummies. Thanks so much for being with us here on WMKV and WLHS.
Thanks for joining us today for Cooking for Yummies, a presentation of WMKV, WLHS, and WMKVFM.org. Until next time, healthy and happy cooking.